Hey guys, welcome to another update video. This one is going to be kind of showing off a couple of the things I've been working on recently. A couple of fan-requested features that people have been bugging me to add since kind of the early days of the game. But anyway, finally had the time to work on this, and it is pretty cool. So we actually have a summon spell now, which is so much fun to play around with. Basically, all of your spells can now have the option to select empty tiles to summon different things on, or run their effects and stuff, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. But you now have the option to tell your spells to choose empty tiles for stuff. And so, if we go ahead and cast this spell here, it will go ahead and summon a wolf for us. So now we have this wolf ally to fight by our side. Every summoned character will drain the caster's mana based on some amount that, whatever the variable is set to for that particular unit every time that the caster's turn ends. So she just ended her turn, and the wolf costs 2 mana to maintain, so her mana is drained by 2. Now, this cost can actually vary between different units and whatnot. So, if you have, say, some giant grand fire dragon, you can actually have it drained by 50 or something. And so it depends on basically what spell level, and all that stuff that you wanna what creature you wanna summon. Now, these summons creatures, they work pretty much the same way as normal characters, so you can go ahead and attack and do all that stuff. You can cast spells if they have any. You can trade items and stuff to these summoned characters, and they can trade to you. However, any key items, any story-related items that you're not supposed to get rid of, that will be blocked if you're trying to trade it to them. Because they are not persistent, so if they die, all that stuff's gone forever. So that's there. Anyway, all of these summoned characters have a recall spell, which means that if you no longer want them around, or you don't need them, you don't want them to drain your mana anymore, you can actually go ahead and cast this, which will basically cancel the spell, and they disappear. So, the other thing is we have this other ability here, which is so cool to play around with. If we go ahead and cast a spell at level 2, we can actually see that we can cast an AoE version of this summon spell. Now, I will not have the magic required to maintain this spell, but we can at least go ahead and see that the game will go ahead and add 5 more wolves to the map here. So now we have 5 wolves on the map. However, we just lost 10 magic, and we didn't have 10 magic. So we could not maintain our summons. And that means that all of our summoned creatures that require mana, so certain units don't need to require mana if you set their cost to 0 or something, if you want them to stick around permanently or have a different effect, like they can only be around for X amount of turns, but they don't cost mana and that sort of thing. They aren't going to be affected by this, but anyone that does drain mana, the second your mana goes down below however much you have, if it hits 0, you're fine, but if it's below 0, then your spell could not be maintained, so all of your summons will disappear. So, anyway, if we go ahead and quick load this, I can basically show you the other spell that I've been working on. And the fun thing about this spell is that I was asked to basically allow spells to select different targets than what they are going to affect. So, for example, Heal is a spell that you select your allies, but it runs its effect on allies. So, if you're casting a heal spell, You can cast it on an ally, and that ally regains some of their health. If you're casting an offensive spell, you're selecting an enemy, and the effect of that spell is running on the enemy. You know, the enemy is taking damage. If you're using summon, you're running that. You're selecting an empty tile, and that effect is running on that empty tile. What I was asked to do was basically split that into two, so give each spell a variable to select, what target they are going to select and what target they are going to run their effect on. So, for example, if we select this Quake spell here, it will run it on ally characters, or being that I am the only ally character here, it will automatically select me. However, it will give me this AoE thing here, which will allow me to damage enemies. So this is a spell that selects allies, but damages enemies. So we go ahead and run this spell, and it will continue through and kill off all of these wolves here. Now, to counter effect something, if we go ahead and cast this spell again, when there are no targets in range, it will still run the effect. It will still cast the spell, take away that 1 mana point because it's a test spell, and it will just say, but nothing happens. So that kind of is in there for a fail-safe in case someone casts it and they have no targets or whatnot. But that's in there, and all of that works, and yeah. It is kind of fun to mess around with some of this stuff now. So now if you wanted a spell that selects empty tiles, but it damages enemies, well, you can do that now. So now you have a little bit more control over where your AoEs go, and that makes certain spells like that very useful. It also changes the amount of tactics that are going to come into play as far as how all of that goes. So that's fun to mess around with. And one more thing regarding the summoned characters, because there is so much stuff that you can do with this. Eventually, as of right now, they don't work this way, but right now, if they attack something, they themselves will gain experience because they are treated as a normal character. Eventually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that so that if a summoned character does do damage, it will actually give their experience that they earned back to the caster. So that's something that I'm working on. And then the other thing is, because they are a character, they're parented to the global character object, I can run any overrides on any of these characters that I want, any of these summoned units. So basically, if you wanted to summon something like the Laser Eye, where it has its own event that runs, its own target selection event and things like that, you can actually do that. So if you wanted to summon, say, an AI-controlled summon, you can do that. If you wanted to summon an object that can't move and you can't control it, however, each turn it will do a massive AoE heal or mana restore in an area, or maybe damage enemies on an AoE. Have it run that Quake spell every turn for X amount of turns before it destroys itself. You can actually do all of that with summons, which is really, really cool. It's one of the probably most versatile spells in the game at this point. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you next time.